Today, we turn to Capitol Hill, where a high-stakes confrontation unfolded during a tense hearing with Homeland Security Secretary Kristin Noem. What started as a routine oversight session quickly escalated into a direct challenge to the administration's sweeping plans to overhaul federal disaster response and reshape the limits of due process in immigration enforcement.
Commitment to be inside my 5 minutes. I will now yield to the ranking member for his 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The Department of Homeland Security has been the top target on Donald Trump's revenge tour, and you, Madam Secretary, are the chief accomplice. The Trump administration is hell-bent on destroying the Department of Homeland Security, built through bipartisan collaboration over the past 2 decades and evading any accountability for its actions. Let's start with what the administration is doing to FEMA. Madam Secretary, you said that you want to get rid of FEMA, and the administration plan is to shirk its disaster response obligation and leave state and local governments to fend for themselves. Emergency managers across the country are sounding the alarm about the limited ability to respond when disasters strike, but their calls are falling on deaf ears from the White House. What is the administration's plan to respond to catastrophic disasters beyond shifting responsibilities to states and local communities who are already telling you they don't have the ability to respond?
Well, Congressman, President Trump has been very clear that he believes that FEMA should be eliminated as it exists today. He believes there's dramatic reforms that need to happen to the agency in order for it to truly serve people in a time of crisis. He wants to empower states and local governments to respond to their people. The federal government would be there for resources, support, much like block grants, but that we need to empower those locally to respond to their people because they know what they need. That is something that every state is at a different position today to respond, but he wants to give them the opportunity to build up the infrastructure to respond to their emergency.
Madam Secretary, do you have this plan in writing?
The White House is coming forward with the participation of the FEMA Review Council, which we have members from many states that are sitting on that will be making recommendations.
So what you're doing now, there's nothing in writing as a guidepost.
Well, sir, you certainly know that there are reform bills here in the House side and in the Senate side of how to address the failures of FEMA from the past.
No, but you're the secretary.
Those will be considered with the FEMA Review Council recommendations.
No, you're the secretary, and you say you're doing all these things. And I'm just asking you, do you have a written plan for what you're doing?
There is no formalized final plan for how this goes forward because the input of Congress is critically important. As you know, there are statutory requirements of the agency.
Well, I'm glad you recognize, Madam Secretary, I'm glad you recognize the statutory requirements. Washington State, Mississippi, and a couple other states already have requests in to you or to the President for disaster declaration, and it's taken an inordinate amount of time, more than normal. I just want to know, is that inordinate amount of time is based on some plan that you have knowledge of? But if it's not in writing, I understand. So you talked about the rule of law. Are you telling the committee that due process for anybody that's picked up in this country should not be followed?
Congressman, we have utilized due process as it is laid out in the tools that Congress has given us. We have followed the tools and the processes to which Congress has given us to give due process to people appropriately as it is due.
So your testimony to this committee under oath is that everybody that ICE has picked up in this country has been given every opportunity as Section 5 under the Constitution provides.
Correct. I believe everybody has gotten due process and every person has been treated appropriately according to the civil or the criminal action to which they were encountering individuals and brought into our detainment and then also removed from this country.
So your answer is
The
yes.
tools that you have given us
No,
as this
no, I'm
body
talking about
for
the
due process
Constitution
have
of the
been
United
implemented.
States. I'm not talking about tools. The Constitution is clear.
Correct.
And your testimony under oath to this committee is that everybody that ICE has picked up and any other agency of DHS has conformed to those statutes.
For example, Congressman,
No,
expedited
yes or no?
removal.
No, I don't need an
Expedited
example.
removal is one of the
Madam
tools that
Secretary,
you have
I
given
got
us to
4
utilize
seconds.
as due process.
I just need a yes or no.
Sir, that is the due process tool that you have given us to utilize that has been appropriately.
So obviously,
Gentleman's time has expired. I now
I have a
recognize
unanimous
Mr.
consent request, Chairman.
I'm sorry?
I have a unanimous consent request.
If you're new here and want clear, factual breakdowns of hearings like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button. The ranking member opened the exchange with a sharp accusation, saying the Department of Homeland Security has become a top target in what he called Donald Trump's revenge tour. He accused the administration of gutting the department and unraveling 2 decades of bipartisan work. But the focus quickly narrowed to FEMA. According to the congressman, governors and emergency managers are already warning that they do not have the capability to handle catastrophic disasters without a strong federal safety net. He pressed Secretary Noem on why the administration wants to eliminate FEMA as a national disaster response agency and shift responsibility almost entirely to state and local governments. Remember to subscribe if you want consistent updates and in-depth analysis like this. Secretary Noem defended the plan by framing it as empowerment rather than abandonment. She said President Trump believes FEMA should be dismantled because the agency has failed Americans for years and that states should take the lead in crisis response while receiving federal block grant-style support. What she did not offer, however, was something the congressman kept returning to, a written plan. That becomes important because written guidance is what emergency managers rely on to prepare for hurricanes, wildfires, floods, and major disasters. Without it, states are left navigating a system in transition without clear rules. If you appreciate these deeper breakdowns, subscribe so you never miss one. The congressman then pivoted to a different but equally serious issue, due process. He asked Secretary Noem directly whether every person detained by ICE has received full constitutional due process, not just administrative procedures created by Congress, but the guarantees within Section 5 of the Constitution. Noem repeatedly insisted that the department has followed all tools available, particularly expedited removal, which allows for swift deportation without a hearing in certain cases. But expedited removal is one of the most debated tools in immigration law. Supporters say it prevents backlog and protects national security, while critics argue it leaves too much room for error because people can be deported before they have a chance to prove lawful status, asylum claims, or fear of persecution. That is why the congressman pressed for a yes or no answer on whether these tools meet constitutional standards. The secretary never gave that direct yes or no. If you want more clear explanations of how these processes work, make sure you are subscribed. The exchange ended abruptly when the member's time expired, but not before raising 2 issues that will almost certainly return in future hearings. First, whether the administration has a coherent national disaster response plan at a time when climate-driven disasters are increasing in frequency. And second, whether DHS is applying expedited removal and other enforcement tools in a way that fully upholds constitutional protections. These are not small procedural questions. They go to the core of how the federal government protects lives during crises and how it upholds the rights of people inside the United States, regardless of immigration status. We'll continue tracking this story, examining the policy implications, the legal tensions, and how states and communities may be affected if FEMA is restructured as dramatically as the administration suggests. For ongoing coverage and explanations you can trust, be sure to subscribe and stay with us.